Our powers can be amusing. Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate coming at you to review a Full Moon Entertainment Pictures classic from the early 90s, 1992 it says here on the VHS tape of Dr. Mordrid. I'm here to review Dr. Mordrid, Master of the Unknown. I'm here to review the movie and also the recently, well, I don't know, maybe it's a year old now or something like that, but also the not too old high definition version or debut of the movie on Blu-ray. So I'm holding in my hand the first video incarnation of Dr. Mordrid, Master of the Unknown, the VHS tape I got way back in the day in the 90s, and the most recent version of Dr. Mordrid, Master of the Unknown, the Blu-ray. Of course, there's probably a Laserdisc and also a DVD that came out as well, but this is the first and the most recent video incarnations of this particular title. Now, back in the day, I've been pretty much a Full Moon fan ever since they came out. Where is this? Okay. Starting with having seen the very first Puppet Master pretty much right after it came out, and I've been meaning to do the Puppet Master reviews, and I will get to them over time. They just released 4 and now 5 on Blu-ray, so whatever. So anyway, I'm make a long story short, I'm here to review Dr. Mordrid. I think what I was saying before I got sidetracked is I was a Full Moon fan ever since the very first movie, Puppet Master, came out, and having been a huge fan of Jeffrey Combs, I still am. I think that his performance in Reanimator, I haven't seen everything he's been in, but his performance in Reanimator is absolutely fantastic, and that was like the most perfect casting for Jeffrey Combs, and in a lot of ways I feel like that is probably obviously one of his first roles, and I kind of feel like I don't think it's kind of a shame, like Orson Welles and Citizen Kane, not that I regard that as his best movie, but Jeffrey Combs, in my opinion, did his best work in one of his first movies, Reanimator. Anyway, I have been and I am a huge fan of Jeffrey Combs. I think that it's kind of a shame when he just appears in movies like Transfers 2 as just some kind of a background bad guy bit part. I think that he's much too good of an actor to just be some background bad guy's accomplice kind of a thing. I thought that was just nonsense. So I got this, I saw this and got this back in the day, probably not too long after it came out, Dr. Mordrid, Master of the Unknown. It's basically about this, it's like a, I don't know, an hour and 15-minute long movie directed by Charlie Band and Albert Band, his dad. When Charlie was busy doing business shit, his dad would take over and stuff like that. So it's a co-directed Band family project, if you will, executive produced, of course, by Charlie Band. And this is back in, what I've said many times on several videos in the past, back in the heyday of Full Moon, when they were being distributed on VHS by Paramount, which was a huge boon, of course, for them at the time, because as I said before, you'd have, theatrical A-movies, Pet Sematary 2 or whatever, that VHSs, which would feature Full Moon, and others, I'm sure, which would be, feature Full Moon trailers for films. So it was a hell of a boon for them back in the day. Jeffrey Combs stars in Dr. Mordrid as one of 2, what do they call them? Sorcerers, along with the guy from the beginning of Terminator. I can't remember his name right now. His name is Brian Thompson, Mr. kind of Schwarzenegger wannabe guy. And it also features a very fantastic actress, Yvette Napar, or whatever the hell, however the hell you pronounce her name, who I want to say went on to be in a RoboCop series. Correct me if I'm wrong, but at any rate, she's a really, really classy, pretty good actress who, in a lot of ways, I felt like is out of her element. She's almost too good for a Full Moon movie. One of the biggest strengths about the film Dr. Mordrid, in my opinion, is the 2 leads, Jeffrey Combs and, of course, what did I say her name was? Yvette Napar, or whatever, is absolutely fantastic, and 2 of the things that really make this movie pretty cool. This movie features, of course, like so many Full Moon movies, it's really a Band family production. It's directed by Charles Band and is co-directed by him and his dad, and features music by Charlie Band's brother Richard, of course, which is a famous, pretty fantastical, wonderful score. It's an all-around pretty damn great movie for straight-to-video, Full Moon cheese entertainment. It features basically the whole plot of this movie is Jeffrey Combs is a good sorcerer that's been on a planet Earth for I don't know how long, at least 100 years. We kind of gather. He basically owns this apartment building that he lives in, and has this the coolest damn apartment space as anyone would ever want to have. It's one of the, back when Full Moon Entertainment had some money, this guy Milo, I think, was the production designer on a lot of Full Moon 90s, early mid 90s productions, and did this absolutely fantastic set for Jeffrey Combs' set with all these, just this cool thing and this neon blue circle thing and all these rows of TVs and VCRs and this map that opens up, and which Jeffrey Combs is able to go to other dimensions or whatnot through, and it's just it's a really cool. This is rated R, right? Yeah, it almost shouldn't have been rated R. It would have been it almost should have been one of their, not that I would have wanted it to be, but it's so fantastical and stuff. It might have been cool as like a Moonbeam, more of a kid. Might have done better if it was, geared towards kids and stuff, because there's really not a lot of stuff in this movie besides obviously the naked chick from Jason Goes to Hell, the beginning of Jason Goes to Hell. There's not a lot of stuff in here that really, cries R rating. So I kind of feel like it was, mismarketed, like it didn't really need to be an R-rated film, maybe PG or PG-13, but whatever. I think Dr. Mordrid is this cool little tale about a good sorcerer, an evil sorcerer, and Jeffrey Combs is the good guy sorcerer who guards planet Earth or whatever from this cabal. Is it Cabal? Who was played by Brian Thompson. They kind of were schooled, little sorcerers. This is like pre-Harry Potter, obviously, and very much of the same vein. They were like they went to little sorcerer school in the same class or whatever, and see a flashback of, young Jeffrey Combs, which of course isn't really him, and young Cabal, and Cabal, lights the Dr. Mordrid's poor floating book on fire. Oh, he's such a bad kid, but just a little foreshadowing of what's to come. But it's, the plot's kind of, this movie's really not about the plot. It's about just two fantastic leads. Brian Thompson is a relatively good bad guy. Production design, the apartment looks great, and it's just Brian Thompson. Cabal basically goes around the movie collecting all these elements or these minerals or whatever the hell, these diamonds and this and that, to bring to this, at the very end in the grand finale, goes to this museum, this Hall of Fossils. I don't know why. Oh, because the last piece of the little is there, I think, that he needs to pour all this shit in and conjure up to open the gateway to let basically the subspecies with different faces, subspecies, little critters, animated, that open the portal, and they're like come through and they're like, come on. But they very much remind me of those little creatures in the subspecies movies with different faces, animated, of course, by the late great Dave Allen. So Dr. Mordrid's strengths is really, the two leads, a very cool, same year, actually the same year or a year before Jurassic Park, a very cool animated, Tyrannosaurus Rex in a, whatever the hell it is, just old, elephant thing with the tusks, whatever, woolly mammoth or whatever the hell it was, little kind of stop motion animation, Dave Allen creation of, the battle between good and evil. Who's evil? The Cabal takes charge of the Tyrannosaur skeleton while Dr. Mordrid is just like looks on in horror, and then he finally realizes, oh shit, I can take control of the whatever the hell it's, what did I say, woolly mammoth? I don't know if that's correct. Regardless, it's like this huge prehistoric elephant with tusks skeleton, which Jeffrey Combs, Dr. Mordrid, takes a hold of, and they do some, fossil skeleton brief battle. I mean, it's a low-budget movie, but... So at the end of the day, I'm going to give Dr. Mordrid, Master of the Unknown, 2 3/4 stars out of 4. It's a strong 2 3/4 stars out of 4, leaning towards 3. But unfortunately, I don't know, just the budget and some of it's just nonsensities, which I didn't really talk about, which aren't really worth. They're not really a big enough deal where they're worth talking about. Is what kind of keeps it from being a 3-star movie. But this is one, in my opinion, one of the better Full Moon movies, along the lines of stuff like the first 3 or so subspecies movies. Obviously the first you know, 3, 4, 5 Puppet Master movies, and in a lot of ways it's really surprising. They had a script for 2 pretty much ready from what I can tell, and it's really surprising and kind of a shame in a way that they didn't, you know, that this movie didn't do well enough for them to make a sequel. Very surprising, because I think it's, you know, I'd say, I haven't seen all the Full Moon movies, but I'd say it's one of the better Full Moon movies to actually have not gotten a sequel. So that's pretty much the review of the movie. Now on to the review of the kind of relatively recently released, it doesn't have a date on here, oh it says 2014, so relatively recently released Blu-ray of Dr. Mordrid. Basically, in my opinion, what, you know, Charlie Band, in my opinion, should just kind of scrap all his ideas for new movies, because the budgets are just so abysmal and everything that he might as well just forget it. And I think that the best thing Charlie Band can do from here on out, in my opinion, is just remaster and restore, well, maybe not restore, maybe, you know, but remaster in high definition all the classic Full Moon movies from the 90s, and you know, that's what he's been doing slowly but surely over the years. I mean, you got the first 5 Puppet Masters now available on Blu-ray, the first 3 Subspecies, Pit and the Pendulum, which I've never seen, which I kind of feel like I should get. Dr. Mordrid, the Doll Man versus Demonic Toys, and Doll Man, and I don't know, there's probably some other ones that I'm not too particularly keen about. I mean, I'm not a fan of like every Full Moon movie, but anyway, he's slowly but surely kind of remastering and putting on Blu-ray for the 21st century of enjoyment the classic Full Moon films, which, like I say, is the best thing that I think he should, I feel like he should just stop making movies and just devote all the energy to, you know, putting out decent Blu-ray versions of the good movies he's done in the past, rather than wasting time and money making crap movies now. But that's just my opinion. The Blu-ray is really cool because it features, you know, pretty fantastical transfer, although at the very beginning the heads are kind of cut off towards the beginning in the movie in the hallway and stuff like that. They should have adjusted the frame a little further up. I don't like cut off tops of heads. But this is a cool Blu-ray for multiple reasons. You know, the transfer is fantastic, and unlike so many of the other Blu-rays I have and have reviewed, this one's actually got, I don't watch the 5.1 pardon me, tracks, because I mean, Full Moon probably ain't going to be any good anyway. I just do the, you know, the 2-channel stereo. But this is one of the only ones that actually sounds like it's stereo. Back in the day, all the Full Moon movies were ultra stereo and had some relatively, you know, decent stereo tracks. And a lot of the DVDs and Blu-rays that they've been putting out, in my opinion, it seems like they're mono, which is kind of a bummer. But this is one of the first ones that really stood out with the opening credit music as being actually stereo, and even sound effects and all this and that. So I can pretty much guarantee or confirm that this is definitely in stereo. Like I said, I'm not going to bother with 5.1. It's probably not very worth anything. One of the coolest things about this release, other than having the beautiful 35mm photography done by, who did it at the time? Was it yeah, Adolfo Bartoli, the guy from Italy. He did a lot of Full Moon movies in the day. It looks fantastic, the 35mm, you know, it really looks like classy stuff, to be honest. And it looks absolutely fantastic on Blu-ray. I think you can see a decent amount of grain. My only complaint with the transfer is a little bit of cropped off, a little bit of heads kind of chopped off, you know, to like, well, something like that, or you know, maybe not as bad, or maybe worse at the very towards the beginning of the movie, just kind of crappy framing. But one of the coolest things about this Blu-ray is, I really absolutely love, is there's an audio commentary with Jeffrey Combs and Charles Band, which is fantastic. And there's no moderation, just those two sitting down with the movie playing in front of them and talking, and it's absolutely a hoot. One of my favorite commentaries of all time is the Reanimator commentary with Barbara Crampton, you know, Jeffrey Combs, the guy who played Barbara Crampton's dad, and Jeffrey Combs' partner. I think there's like 4 people, and the very first time I ever heard the commentary, of course, was on, I think, the 95 Laserdisc, the Elite Laserdisc of that, which I'm sure is ported over to DVD since. But absolutely fantastic commentary, and Jeffrey Combs just seems like such a great guy and whatever. And the commentary in this, you know, on this Blu-ray is fun. I mean, I'm kind of a, I mean, Charles Band is, you know, he's very, say what you will about his movies, but he's, you know, accomplished. He's made hundreds and hundreds of movies. So obviously he's did something right to be able to make that many movies, say what you will about the movies. So it's interesting to listen to such an accomplished, quote-unquote, filmmaker and, you know, an actor I really like, Jeffrey Combs, and a relatively entertaining commentary. I mean, you know, almost more or more entertaining than the audio of the movie. So it's absolutely fantastic. And as I put that back up when I shouldn't have, it also features the original Video Zone, the featurette. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the whole Video Zone, which I'd like to have, just the making of portion, which is kind of a bummer. You know, they should just put the whole videos on there. The stupid thing, which I turned off because it was so awkward and dumb, this rare William Shatner interview with Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton. I think I don't know why it doesn't say it here, but I don't know if that's the one that had also, what's his name? Stuart Gordon was there as well, if I'm not mistaken. Well, another cool thing about this is it's got uncut behind-the-scenes footage from the Full Moon Vault, which is basically all this footage that they shot for the Video Zones. You know, the stuff that we see in the Video Zones, of course, was only just the highlights or the best, the stuff that they thought was the best, all cut together and used in a way that they thought was, worked well. But in addition to the movie with the cool commentary in the Video Zone, this Blu-ray also features a 1 hour and 32 minutes of just raw, on-set footage behind the scenes of Dr. Mordrid. Unfortunately, I think there's a rather lengthy, maybe 10 or 15 minute long interview with, I think it's Ted Nicolau or something like that, that really kind of feels like it doesn't belong there. I actually subscribed to Full Moon Streaming back I think it was like a couple years ago or a year and a half ago when they did like a week for free, and I signed up for the week and then I canceled before the free, so I didn't have to pay anything. And one of the coolest things about fullmoonstreaming.com is that they have these, basically what's on the Blu-ray is all these unedited, raw, behind the scenes of classic Full Moon movies, behind the scenes, which is cool, which you can actually find on YouTube. Some Kind Soul is actually, I don't know how he got them off of there, but he's got them and he's put it on YouTube. But one of my biggest gripes about the 1 hour and 32 minutes of raw footage on this Blu-ray is it doesn't have this really cool interview with Jeffrey Combs that they did, also an interview with Brian Thompson. They have this stupid interview with Ted Nicolau, who doesn't have anything to do with, I don't think, because he's directed his own movies at the time, doesn't have anything to do with this production. But there's some really cool, unfortunately, interviews with Jeffrey Combs and Brian Thompson that you don't see on this behind the scenes, raw video. But one of the coolest things about you actually do see some behind the scenes of Dr. Mordrid and stuff like that. I can't remember. I don't think the interview they did this cool interview with him and his dad. I don't think that's on here either, unfortunately, which you can see on YouTube as well. But one thing that did make its way to this, is this the one with, yes it is. This is the one that at the very beginning of the 1 hour and 32 minutes of raw footage from back in the day, you see these very hilarious, back in the early 90s, Charlie's band had Charlie Spradling, the kind of young and attractive girl, doing some of these, she was kind of the sexy spokesgirl for Full Moon Entertainment in the early 90s, and you get some Charlie Spradling bloopers, which are absolutely hilarious and funny. She's absolutely she's got this thing in front of her of what she's supposed to read, and she can't read it, and she's like, I know this too, and it's like, you don't need to know it, you're reading it, and it's just like, you can tell like she's, I don't know, got to be somewhere. I don't know what the hell her problem is, but at the very beginning of the hour and 32 minutes of raw footage is the like 6 or so odd minutes of funny ass Charlie Spradling trying to do these, like pimping out Full Moon and the fan club video things. So that's really funny, and the video ends with them. At the time, I think it was Charlie Band's wife who went around and did these interviews, and they just bugging at the very end. They just bugging the hell out of poor Dave Allen, who's, every movie he's a part of Full Moon, they got to come back and interview him, and he says basically the same thing, where he explains about stop motion, what it is, and all this crap. And the cameraman was such an idiot later on, where he actually filmed an insert of him, talking with the, the little miniature animated dino skeletons. So they filmed an insert with him, his hand, and talking about it over the shot of the actual miniatures, and then they went to shoot coverage of his face, which you should shoot the coverage of his face and him talking first, as they did earlier, but they screwed up this time, and then they went to shoot his face after, and he's like, okay, you try to say a little bit what you said earlier, and he's just like, oh, of you know, like I can't, you know, it doesn't have to be word for word, but anyway, you know, Dave Allen looks so, you know, they go around, I've seen more of this, same thing with what's his name in the behind the scenes of Robot Wars, the guy, was it Don Michael Paul who played the hero in Robot Wars. It's just like he's so, and when you see the raw footage of his interviews, he's so uninterested in talking to this, you know, for these stupid full moon video zones. It's just like they bug these poor people in a, doesn't come across that way in the finished video zone, but when you look at the raw footage, it's just like they're trying to just, oh my gosh, you know, they're trying to, like, these people have no interest in being interviewed whatsoever. So anyway, that's some of the, this is a really relatively, and on Amazon right now, I think it's like only $11 or $12 or $13, so that's what I got it for, a relatively cheap price. And when it came down, you know, when these things first come out, they're upwards of like $20, and I wait for the prices go down relatively quick, or what seems anyway like it's relatively quick. But anyway, I went on and on and on and on way too long for this review. But if you're a fan of this movie, I'd highly recommend the Blu-ray. It's actually in stereo from what I can tell. The picture is amazing. The image is amazing. The commentary is great, and the hour and 32 minutes of behind the scenes, you know, just, you know, raw behind-the-scenes video from the day, and Charlie Spradling screwing up, and poor Dave Allen just being harassed by the interviewer, and just all the technicalities of doing a behind-the-scenes thing, like close-ups of the dinosaur, and like, how should I hold it and squeeze the thing? It's just, anyway, I'm going on and on and on, but pretty much mostly recommended movie, and a pretty much mostly highly recommended Blu-ray of that particular movie. So in closing, one of the best, or one of the better full moon movies in my opinion, Dr. Mordrid and Master of the Unknown. What's so funny, there's a little inside joke between Jeffrey Combs and Charlie Band. He's like, what am I the master of? And he's like, I don't know. It's not known, you know. It's kind of funny. So anyway, thank you very much for watching this probably way too long review, but I get kind of giddy and shit when I talk about these early full moon movies. It brings me back to being a teenager, early 90s and stuff, and yeah, I guess I get kind of giddy talking about some of the full moon movies that I actually like. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.